You're watching RTV News with me, Jane Mutoni. While attending the opening of the Commonwealth Business Forum, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, pointed out that the Commonwealth member countries have got a lot in common and should share economic development for a brighter future. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Kagame, has stressed that the expansion of modern business facilities in Rwanda is one of the things that will help the country to become a strong financial hub. A very warm welcome to the news in details. While attending the opening of the Commonwealth Business Forum, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, pointed out that the Commonwealth member countries have got a lot in common and should share economic development for a brighter future. Ghislaine Mugwaneza has this report.
It's been 25 years since the Business Forum was established in Commonwealth member countries, and it is the first and largest in-person gathering for governments and businesses across the Commonwealth since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. President Paul Kagame, who attended the forum, noted on what binds the Commonwealth nations and the opportunities this presents.
There is already the understanding that we have to work for a common future. So we have to work at that and make sure that we get it. So I think it's work in progress. We are moving towards the point, and I am optimistic that the world has a lot of divergences, but at the same time, on everyone's mind and every nation's vision, there is thinking of that common future.
The Rwanda head of state also reiterated that such opportunities should not go to waste.
When we talk about the Commonwealth, we actually mean the Commonwealth, not just that being common to a few of the many 54 countries. So, and this is why I said it keeps being a work in progress. We keep having to engage one another, finding out what we can do to bring that balance to the extent that everyone in the Commonwealth, the family of nations, feels they are part of it. Right. No one is left behind. I think this is what we have to focus on.
Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, the President of Africa Development Bank, said the common future should be based on good governance and no one should be left behind on the development journey. He also appreciated the progress that Rwanda has made on this journey.
When you enter Kigali, it's different every single time you enter it. The last time I came to see the President was 3 years ago, and I couldn't even recognize Kigali when I got here. So when we talk about a common future needs good leadership to shape that future. And that's what you have here. And I also think that kind of common future is what Patricia Scotland just very well explained to us here just this morning. You were saying that the size of the economy of the Commonwealth will grow, it's about $13 trillion. Now, but the issue is, it's concentrated though. 5 countries are the ones that actually control most of those. That is UK, that is Australia, Canada, maybe Nigeria, and India. So that common future must be exactly what President Kagame said. Commonwealth, it must be well shared all across.
Lord Jonathan Maryland, the chairman of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council, applauded His Excellency Paul Kagame for deciding that Rwanda should join the Commonwealth after identifying the benefits of doing so. Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, also noted on the trade potential of the countries that are part of the political association, pointing out that they have a combined gross domestic product of $13 trillion. Ghislaine Mugwaneza, RTV News.
Thank you, Ghislaine, for that report. Now, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, has stressed that the expansion of modern business facilities in Rwanda is one of the things that will help the country to become a strong financial hub. Now, the President made the remarks while laying the foundation stone of the Kigali International Finance and Business Square, which will be completed after 2 years of construction and cost $100 million. Betty Mutoni has this report.
Once complete, the state-of-the-art commercial complex will be a joyride in the heart of Kigali's business sector.
The lower part will be serving commercial purposes, and as for the two towers, one will be apartments and a hotel. For the hotel, we are looking for an international brand which will manage it together with apartments. Then the other tower will be comprised of offices.
This is a major investment for Equity Bank and a push in the right direction when it comes to the development.
Today, Equity has grown to be the largest bank in East and Central Africa in terms of assets. That growth, that transformation is because of serving and being relevant to the people.
The Kigali International Finance and the Business Square complex will be fully operational in 2 years, a major boost for business in the Kigali city.
There is a significant increase in the economy of Rwanda, and there will be offices, apartments, hotels, and you know that our country cares about tourism, and it will increase the 10,000 hotel rooms that the country currently has.
President Paul Kagame commended the initiative and gave assurances that the necessary support will be provided so that it is completed on time.
This business center will advance Rwanda's ambition of becoming a trusted hub for financial services. For the past 2 years, the pandemic has slowed down economic growth and deepened inequalities. But that is not going to be a permanent state for us or for the region or for the continent. I think things will again start going upward. Regional financial hubs are critical to attracting new investment and getting us back on track. Our country's stability and business-friendly environment are an added advantage. Over the years, we have created meaningful partnerships which have contributed to our development. I therefore have no doubt that it will be the same for Kigali Financial Square. You have our full support and count on us as a reliable partner. I mean all those who are investing in our country with us or in us.
As part of efforts to maximize the proper use of space, the Kigali International Finance and Business Square's internal parking facilities will be able to hold up to 600 vehicles. Betty Mutoni, RwandaTV News.
Non-governmental organizations and participants in Commonwealth People's Forum say that both public and private sectors should invest in healthcare to improve the living conditions of people in member states of Commonwealth. Take a look.
Health justice and climate justice.
The People's Forum is taking place at a time when the world is still combating COVID-19 pandemic, which has had a significant impact on the health and well-being of the people across the world. The Director General of the Commonwealth Foundation, Dr. Anne Gallagher, urged everyone to think of ways to make the world a better place.
What sets the forum apart, once again, is the place that civil society, that people occupy within our Commonwealth. It's because the people are so important, so critical to the Commonwealth's identity, that the People's Forum is so important. We need the voices and ideas that will lead to the sort of transformations that we so desperately require, the transformation of systems and attitudes that entrench inequality and that marginalise so many of our fellow human beings.
The Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies in Rwanda's Parliament, Honourable Donatille Mukabalisa, announced that the country is ready to share with other countries its achievements in improving people's livelihoods.
In the last 28 years, Rwandans have worked hard to reconcile and unite, build the institutions to move our country forward, and keep us all accountable as we serve our citizens and fulfill our international obligations. We look forward to sharing this experience with you and also learn from one another.
Among the topics that were discussed at the forum was how to improve the health sector in order to provide better health care to the people. The Director of Global Programs at the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation, Professor Senaid Fiseha, said that as the world still combats COVID-19, there are some countries where public health and well-being are not taken seriously, some of whom have not yet received COVID-19 vaccines. She commended the way Rwanda cares for the people.
The incredible thing about Rwanda is the value the government and the society puts on human life. For a nation that has witnessed the atrocities of the genocide against the Tutsis, the resolve now is that every life is valued and interconnected. So soon after I arrived, talk about examples, because there was aggressive testing throughout the last 2 years, and as cases rise, there was significant lockdown. Of course, you look at it from civil liberties perspective, and somebody will say, oh, this is human rights, how do you lock us up? But the truth is, your individual rights do get compromised when it becomes the well-being of society as a whole. But at the same time, Rwanda looked at and said, what are we doing to ensure people have access to food, right? So it wasn't only the government, it was the lesson of you are each other's keeper. So communities were contributing to provide food for those that were less fortunate.
Members of the civil society and the people of the Commonwealth say that in the spirit of caring for the health of people, more effort is needed in some areas.
There are a lot of things to be done. From the reflection we just had on ensuring that we move towards realization of universal health coverage, there are a lot of, we need to have resilient health systems. We need to have resources that are adequate, that are located into supporting healthcare. Our citizens need to be fully covered, and that would mean that they are able to have costs covered under insurance schemes, so that in case of disease breakouts, but also for the normal health-seeking costs, they are not obliged to pay out of pocket, because out-of-pocket expenses are very, very high. So in terms of health financing, we need to see our countries putting in more resources to ensure that we have adequate health budget that can respond to the emerging needs. COVID-19 has shown us that we need to rethink, because it did show that most of our health systems were not equipped. We didn't have trained healthcare providers, not enough health infrastructure, health budgets, and all these needs now to be reworked on so that we are prepared for any other pandemic that can come after this one.
When it comes to health, health actually is a human right, and everybody should be entitled to health, to at least the basic amenities, whether you can afford it or not. So we see that there's a need for public funding for health so that even the vulnerable be able to get basic health care, and that would improve the lives of people. But when we consider health, it's not just the absence of disease, okay? So we must work together as a people in the Commonwealth to ensure that every Commonwealth citizen gets basic health care at little or no cost.
In a discussion called Climate and Justice, it was explained how climate change continues to have a significant impact on the health of people across the world. Poverty-stricken countries continue to suffer from air pollution. Some of the developed countries have been committed to tackling the problem, but the measures are yet to be implemented. Women economic empowerment is one of the themes that were discussed at this year's Commonwealth Women's Forum. Cherry Blair, CBEQC founder and chair of Omnia Strategy LLP and founder of the Cherry Blair Foundation for Women, who was in attendance, sat down with RBS Isabel Masozera to expound on the need for governments to prioritize women's economic empowerment and hailed Rwanda for its progress is ensuring equal opportunities for men and women. Take a look.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, a report earlier indicated that it's going to take about 268 years before we realize women's economic empowerment. Quite staggering and sort of unbelievable to even fathom. Now, today I'm joined by a lady who has made women's economic empowerment her business, her focus, her priority through her foundation, the Cherry Blair Foundation. Welcome to the set.
I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be back in Rwanda, especially as it hosts the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting.
Right. Now, one of the things that you spoke passionately about earlier is the fact that we need to onboard governments leveraging the law. How best can we do that? Not only to make sure they can use the law to counter injustices against women, but also that we can make sure that we prioritize using the law, empowering women economically.
Well, I think Rwanda's a great example, of course, and one of the ways the Rwandan people used Parliament and the law was the law that they had, which required at least 30% of the representatives to be of one sex or the other. So, you know, the underrepresented sex had a chance to get into Parliament, and of course we saw that blossom into 60% women MPs. And you know, when you have women's voices heard in Parliament, then you get a wider range of issues discussed and brought to the fore, and that's why we've seen so much progress in Rwanda in things like violence against women, in women's economic opportunities, in making sure girls get educated. All these things come not just from the laws, but laws which are designed by men and women equally, so that things are not overlooked, which shouldn't be overlooked. But on top of that, of course, it's not enough to write the laws, you then have to implement them. And implementing the laws is not just one institution's responsibility. You have to see that through the courts, you have to see that through the other institutions of government, and you have to see that through the community, working through NGOs and also culture and media, all contributing to this change. We talked today about culture. Culture is not static, and though sometimes cultures can seem to be impossible to turn round, I believe that Rwanda has illustrated how that can happen if we all pull together.
I want to stick with culture just a little bit. We heard earlier how patriarchy had contributed to us staying behind, and you asked a question: how many generations is it going to take for us to see that women are empowered economically? Looking and staying with the theme this year, which says delivering a common future, but at the same time that requiring transformation, I want you to talk to us about what women can do differently in order to counter the cultural limitations, but also how can they position themselves to be able to lead the narrative that gets us there?
Well, I think when you mentioned about what women can do, I think what women... what we've seen for the feminist movement is a wider recognition of diversity. So, you know, there isn't one single woman either. Women are a very diverse group, but because they often have been oppressed, I think they have a lot more sympathy for other diversities. And we heard today, for example, something that I feel very passionately about, which is about just people with disabilities, and how too often they are seen for what they cannot do rather than for what they can do. And it's about opening people's eyes to the fact that different isn't frightening, different isn't wrong, different is just another way of looking and doing things which actually can help me grow and develop in the way that I do things.
Before I let you go, in your memoir, you speak passionately about the need for people to be treated fairly and objectively. Earlier, you touched the issue of the media using images to discredit women, getting in the way of women's progress. Is there anything that you can say to us about possibly how we could change that reality?
Well, the media is such a powerful force for good, but it can also, of course, be a powerful force for conservatism and not changing things. One of the great things about the media is, of course, representation. So the fact that you and I are here talking and talking about things that maybe are not always discussed is a very important part of that. And part of that is also about laws. And I mentioned in my speech how we have realized in the UK that the laws we were dealing with to protect women had not adapted to the new situation. And the new situation is about how we have had stalking using the internet, we have sharing of private images and shaming on the internet, and how we also have to make sure that people are protected where they are. And as technology comes in and changes our environment, we're always running to catch up. So we have to keep advocating for that change. We have to keep advocating for working together, respecting each other, and understanding that, as I said, diversity is a joy and not something to be afraid of.
Diversity is a joy and not something to be afraid of. Before I let you go, why women's economic empowerment? What drew you to this cause? Why is that so dear to you?
I think because I saw my mother after my father left us when I was little, having no money and having to scramble around to try and find a job, and she took a job in a fish and chip shop, and then she managed to get a better job, and she ended up in the travel industry. But that lack of financial control, that lack of having some money to make choices, stayed with me. And as a lawyer and as someone who was lucky enough to be able to make choices because I had my own money, I didn't have to answer to anyone else about how I spent my own money, made me realize that women need to be able to do that. In too many parts of the world, women don't get access to the family's wealth. They don't get access to the country's wealth, and they don't have the ability to make their choices. So you can't leave an abusive relationship. You can't say, I want to send my daughter to school. You can't stand up and say, I want my voice heard. Money is not the answer to everything, but it is a vehicle that can enable you to be the change you want to see.
One message looking straight into that camera that goes to every young woman who sees you and is inspired not just by your foundation, but what you stand for as a woman. Could you look into that camera and let's send them an inspiring message?
I want to say to the young Rwandan women that you don't need me to tell you. You can look and see what your mothers and your grandmothers have already achieved in this country in the last 20, 25 years, how you have transformed this country. And you've done that because men and women have worked together. So you know that you can do it because you can see how much your mothers and grandmothers have already achieved. Take up that baton and push on with the race.
Well, there you have it. On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you so much for your company. I'm Jane Mutoni. Bye for now.